Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Wheelchair Activist. This is a podcast hosted by me, Emma Vogelman, where I interview some pretty amazing disabled people. Today, I want to introduce you to Lucy Webster. Lucy is a fantastic writer and journalist, and you may know her from the tweet that went viral talking about her experience of being rejected from a dating agency because she's a wheelchair user. But you may also know her from her amazing newsletter called The View from Down Here. I'm so excited for you to get to know Lucy and to hop into today's conversation.
I'm an advocate of the social model. I would have the social model tattooed on my forehead if I could. You're having quite a good time at the pub when you're married. You had a couple of times. You're having a laugh. You don't worry about life. And then someone goes, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" I'm continually amazed by the number of people who like to tell me that I should be in the parliament. You should be angry. If you are being oppressed by the system, the only rational response is anger. We're taught that anger is rational, but it's not. It's how you should react.
Great. Oh, Lucy, thank you so much for joining us on The Wheelchair Activist. I'm so excited to have you on. You've been on my list for a while now to interview because I'm such a big fan of your writing and your activism, but it'd be great if you could tell our listeners a little bit about you and about what you do.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I am a freelance journalist, covering disability in all its forms, especially looking at disability in politics and disability in culture. So I write for newspapers and magazines. Yeah, that's me.
Amazing. And I feel that, before we get into everything else that there is to know about you, I feel that you may be known to a lot of people who are listening to this because of your experience that was very negative, but it sort of went viral about your experience trying to work with it was a dating agency, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's a long story. The short version is that I was having a bad time getting out. Dating out are not a good place to be a disabled woman. I just thought maybe I get some help. So I looked not the agencies were either for kind of people in their 50s and 60s, older, or very, very expensive. And I found this one that was a bit younger, a bit more affordable. So I thought, oh, great, fantastic. I'll go for this. Called them up, had a really nice conversation in which I said that I am so important, and they said, yeah, I'm fine, don't worry about it. Put some details in the application form, which I did. And because I mentioned that I was wheelchair, they then emailed me to tell me that people don't want to take wheelchairs. Something I shouldn't apply. But they would save my details in case they set up a specialist site for the disabled.
Oh, if only our listeners could hear my massive eye roll at that.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a shock. A shock and yet a shock, I guess. So I was really upset, and then my friend said, maybe we should share this.
I love that, yeah.
I thought, yeah, what the hell? I'm gonna share it. I did not expect the ensuing reaction, which was extraordinary. I think it was seen by about 4 million people or something.
Oh, wow.
And it was covered by all the papers, the Times, the Mail, the Telegraph. At the time, I was working for the BBC. I ended up going on the Today program, and then they ended up covering it on the last leg on Channel 4. So it was quite the week. I think I'm just about recovered.
I think that's, I mean, it particularly resonates with me for a lot of reasons, but I love that your friend encouraged you to share it. And I can imagine that really wasn't an easy thing to do, because that was a really upsetting experience. And it's really vulnerable to share that type of rejection, online.
Yeah,
But I'm really glad that you did.
What I wanted to say with that tweet was, as a society, we have this kind of veneer of acceptance. And I had a good job at the BBC. Living a very successful life. And yet, this is what people thought it was okay to say to me.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to show that no matter how quote unquote successful a disabled person is, we are still second class citizens.
Yeah.
I think some of the people in my circle who are used to just seeing me out and about and doing interesting things, were quite shocked.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think my reaction when I saw it was, I can't say it was shock, because I was incredibly sad and angry for you, but I didn't have that sort of exact same experience as you, but I wasn't surprised,
No,
unfortunately, that you'd received that.
no, that was something I really had to hammer home to people when I talked about and was interviewed about. It was incredibly upsetting and incredibly enraging. But it wasn't a surprise because if people didn't think like that, I would never have gone to a dating agency in the first place.
That's a very fair point. Yeah, I think, I just wanted to pick up on what you said about, how your career at the time was really successful. Like you said, you were working at the BBC. And I think a big misconception of disability is that, we don't have personal lives, we don't have dating lives and all of that, where if we are quote unquote successful. You know, it is in a career sense, or you're in achieving as an
Yeah.
advocate, which obviously people like you do extremely well. But it was to me so amazing to hear you talk about that experience because it just really shone a light on, you know, you were willing to go to this agency to, you know, use their service for your personal life as same as anyone else would want to. And you were met with that crappy response. So yeah, I feel it was really important to bring that up because I know people will know, you know, you said 4 million people saw that tweet and you know it launched in a way it kind of launched your freelance career, right? Because you've now left the BBC and are freelancing.
Yeah. So I think what I realized through the experience was I had things to say. And the BBC was fantastic, but no, not a place where you can scream and shout and make trouble. I quite enjoy making trouble, it turns out. And it was a way to, you know, I got that email and it was awful, but actually sharing it and talking about it and doing the media around it was a way to take back the power
I love that. Yeah.
and say no. I will not be treated this way. I will tell people, and there will be consequences. Um, I think if I hadn't done that, it would have had a much more lasting effect on my mental health. Um, and then I realized that that's what I wanted to be doing. Um, I never thought of myself as an advocate. I never wanted to be an activist. But I just thought I'm 20. How old was I? I was 26, and during the pandemic, actually, we seem to be going backwards in terms of rights. I was no longer happy to sit on the sidelines and allow that to happen without at least making a fuss about it.
Yeah. I love how you framed that though about taking back the power from that situation and turning it into something that makes you feel like you're, you know, doing something and also really importantly doing something that you enjoy. And, you know, as a reader of your newsletter, The View from Down Here, I mean, I love your content. I think it's so enlightening. And I think, you know, for me reading it as a fellow wheelchair user, it's really refreshing to sort of hear that honesty about disability and, you know, the experiences that you go through that are ones that we all share, but ones that we don't always talk about.
Yeah, I think it's funny when I write. I think I'm so used to writing for a non-disabled audience, but
Mm.
the most brilliant feedback is always for other disabled people and other disabled women saying, "Oh my God, me too," and that's brilliant. And as disabled women, we don't get that in the media. Um, so I hope that my little newsletter is that space and will grow to be that space for more and more people.
Well, if for anyone listening, if you have not subscribed, to Lucy's newsletter. I couldn't recommend it more. I'll make sure that the link is in the description of this episode. And I think it's so interesting what you said about writing for a non-disabled audience. And sort of the way that you then will talk about things is very different when you're writing for disabled people or if you're writing to both groups of people. But there's this question that I ask all of the guests on this podcast. And it's a really big one and it's a bit mean, but I want to ask you, what does disability mean to you?
Oh, what a fantastic question.
I think you're the first person to say that. Everyone always says, oh, God, that's a hard question.
Quite a big question. First and foremost, I think disability is a way of existing in the world. I'm an advocate of the social model. I would have this social model tattooed on my forehead if I could. I think disability is a social phenomenon that is created by society being inaccessible and ableist, and therefore it impacts every part of life. But only exists in relation to other people and systems that disable me. I do not think my body is broken or bad or wrong or any of those things that are assumed about. So that's my kind of what is disability. But if you ask what disability means to me, I think it means community. So many of my friends I have found through the disabled community. So many of the people I look up to are disabled women and a couple of men. We accept them too. It's empowering and it's being understood and being on the same side. Which is such a simple thing, but I think so many of us grow up without that, without community and solidarity, and we find it maybe in our 20s and 30s, and what a powerful thing. So to me, disability means all these incredible, kind, funny, fierce people who make up my life.
I think, what you said about only find, so many of us only find community, the disabled community later in life. I mean, it certainly rings true to me. And, it was something that I talked to Chloe Timms about on an episode, and so much of that regret, really, of not identifying with the community before then. And I think it's interesting hearing from you about how that's what disability is to you now. And it, I completely agree that, this community is made up of such diverse and truly amazing people. And I think, that was a big inspiration behind doing this podcast at all is, look at all of these people doing amazing things that sometimes have to do with disability and sometimes absolutely don't. And I want other people to know that.
Definitely, I think the pandemic has been horrendous for our community, but I also think it reinforced that sense of solidarity and looking out for each other advocating for each other and maybe, gave us all the kick we needed to be angry. And the anger is a really powerful, motivating emotion.
Mm.
I think that anger was horrible that we had to feel it, but I think it will lead to new and exciting things.
Yeah, I I completely agree with that, and it reminded me of this quote that quite often is linked with the feminism movement, but it's the quote, "If you're not angry, you're not paying attention." And, I think that completely is accurate for the pandemic for disabled people. We've been forgotten about or, chosen to be forgotten about for this whole pandemic, and we're still being treated as disposable, essentially, with the lifting of all restrictions, particularly the restriction of isolating if you test positive. It has felt like a massive kick in the teeth for disabled people who continue to be very scared about contracting COVID. So I completely agree that the anger, I mean, anger, to be honest, fuels a lot of what I do. Um, so, I hope that people listening to this will realize that, you and I get angry, but to try and channel that into something that helps us all.
Yeah, I think something that I've learned recently is you should be angry. Eh, If you are being oppressed by the system, the only rational response is anger. It's not. We're taught that anger is rational, but it's not. It's how you should react to this, and especially to
Mm,
what happened in the pandemic. I do say that quote of if you're not angry, you haven't paid attention. I say to people all the time, I love that you just said that because I just think it's so true.
yeah,
I think lots of people possibly think that they're paying attention, but they're not really.
yeah, I say it to people as well. So I'm glad that you do as well. So we talked a bit about like how powerful the disabled community is for you and how a lot of us only find it later on in life, but I'm really interested to ask you, while you were growing up, who were your role models?
This is so interesting because I've been talking about this a lot this week. Um, I honestly don't think I had any. I've always been a real teacher. I've always relied on full-time care. I need a lot of help. Um, and there was no one like me in the public eye in the early noughties. Um, there just wasn't. They were there. You
Mm,
sometimes I think I had to be my own role model. It wasn't very clear for quite a while. And because you can't be what you can't see, right?
yeah,
And that's so true. And I'm now at the stage of my career where because I'm writing about this stuff, suddenly I'm meeting all of these brilliant people who were out there when I was a kid and I had no way of finding them. I think, God, if I'd only known, 15 years ago, that you were out here and you were out here and how different that experience of growing up would have been, and how much less terrifying
Yeah,
it would have been.
I just quickly jotted down that you can't be what you can't see because that's so impactful. And I think that that really speaks to what I'm trying to do with this podcast is to provide that representation so that when disabled people are thinking about what their life could be and what they may want it to be, that they see people who are doing all different kinds of things. They can visualize themselves in that area of work or doing that with their life.
Yeah.
That's so powerful.
And that you don't have to be a Paralympian.
Yeah,
You can be
completely.
wherever you want to be. Mm.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, the the perception of disability can sometimes be you're either, frail at home doing nothing, or you're a Paralympian. But
Yes.
a lot, yeah, but a lot of us live in that in-between space, or we're doing things that are amazing, but have nothing to do with sport.
Yeah.
I couldn't know less about sports if I tried.
No,
So
I'm the least sporty person alive. And, that's fine. But I'm continually amazed by the number of people who like to tell me that I could be in the Paralympics.
have people actually said that to you?
Yes, I don't know I couldn't. I eat cake for breakfast. Not who I am. Oh,
Oh, I mean, part of me is surprised that someone would suggest that, given, that you're only a successful writer and journalist, and, all that. Naturally, the next step is the Paralympics.
naturally. But this is why I think, I'm very prolific on Twitter, and part of that, it's not that I think I live some inherently fascinating life. I don't, but I want to show that you can just live a normal life. You just, go to the pub and you make, or have a job,
Mm,
or just be honest.
yeah,
um, and that's why I tweet about, mundane things, because I think disability kept in this box of the Paralympics or the sad, pitiable, depressed person stuck at home. And, the whole world of disabled people living average, interesting, not interesting
yeah,
lives, because that's what people do.
yeah. I think it's trying to, yeah, just hammer home that disabled people, yes, we're disabled, but we also are people. Like, we, okay, we have to fill our cars with petrol and go to the shops and all of those,
Yeah,
like you said, those mundane things that we don't get to not
yeah,
do, but it's reminding people that we are exactly the same.
yeah. And we make friends and argue with our friends and fall in love and, you know, get married and have kids and get divorced, and because life is messy and complicated,
Yeah,
because it's real life.
yeah, completely agree. And, when you were saying that, it made me think about I mean, this may tie in with my next question, but it made me think about your decision to quit your job at the BBC and decide to go freelance. And I think that, if I'm trying to think from a non-disabled perspective, people might be really surprised at that, that you're giving up this prestigious job and the security and all of that to do something that is risky and is unsure, but it's a decision that's done by so many people all the time, disabled or not. But I wonder if people ever should have questioned you more for that decision because of your disability.
I know because I don't have family or friends that would do that. I guess my parents are very supportive. And my friends are pretty feisty people. Non-disabled and disabled, I think we attract what we are. And so I think they were surprised. But I don't think they were surprised because I'm disabled. I think they were surprised because it was a very surprising thing.
Yeah.
But actually, they know me and they know that I like to say what I think and that I like to be challenged. And I think most people around me could see that I was not having the best time and could see that I knew what I needed to do, and they probably weren't going to be able to stop me.
I love that.
So they were really supportive, actually, I have to say. Once I explained my reasoning, everyone was pretty on board.
Which is wonderful. I think it's so important to have that support from family and friends, but I love that you were probably going to do it anyways. So my next question is, what is something that you're most proud of?
That's hard. I'm really proud of sharing that email. I wanted to, but I also thought, oh my god, I'm putting this on the internet. Is this gonna go terrible? I actually didn't go to the actually went very well. So yeah, I think I was so angry at the time I didn't even realize how gutsy that was. But then when I tell the story, I think that was quite gutsy.
Yeah, it was.
But myself, I am really proud of making the decision to go for that. It was not a simple decision, but it was the right one. I also am really proud of kind of my teenage self who was having a pretty crap time of life and decided to start writing. I had no idea that was gonna be what I did for the rest of my life, but I started a blog and it kept me going through some pretty rough few years and then led to this career that I sometimes can't believe that I have. So that was a good move from 15 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree that it was a gutsy decision to put that really intimate experience online, but I'm really glad you did because, you know, as a disabled person myself, I found it really important for other people to hear about the experiences that we have when trying to have a dating life. And to, the fact that we want a dating life because it's not really talked about enough. And I know that when like for me a few years ago, I decided to put on like my investigative journalism hat. And I did do online dating for a little while because I wanted to see what it was like for a disabled woman. And I had some interesting experiences, let's put it that way. None of them particularly
Yeah.
positive. And I wrote a piece for about it for Hey Girl magazine, but the way that I ended up doing the piece was interviewing other disabled women who had had experience with online dating and seeing if theirs was positive or negative. And so I sort of took the focus off myself for that piece. So I'm just really impressed by anyone who can put that focus on themselves and their reaction to experiences. And maybe it's
Mm,
something I'll do again in the future. But I think what was so galling about your experience was that it wasn't, some creep on Tinder who was mean to you. It was an agency that you
yeah.
were willing to pay to
No.
provide their service, and they said no.
Totally. I think, you know, I've yet to meet a disabled woman who has not had a terrible time on dating apps. They are bad. um, and men are mean. Um,
Yeah.
but like you said, it's not nice. But you do think, oh, well, yeah, weirdo. Unmatched with you. Um, and you know, for it to come from an established company and for them to happily write me that email um was a whole different register of hurtful. Um Luckily I
Mm,
have a lot of friends and you know people made sure I was okay and I am okay. But I now basically refuse to think about, talk about, consider going on the apps or trying another agency or any of that because I actually think it's not
mm,
worth the emotional toll. I'm not willing to do that to myself anymore. I think I still have friends saying,
mm,
"Oh, yeah, get out there. You'll find someone." And no, because the experience is always so bad. Why? Why would I do that to myself
mm.
anymore? I think the reason that I wanted to be so personal about when I tweeted it was I was kind of sick of not being believed.
Okay.
I think for a lot of people, the fact that I'm so successful and their eyes, if not in my they kind of think, well, this should be okay, this should make everything work. This is always worked out. You got somewhere, you got what you wanted, and it's a bit of a challenge, but she's done it. I kind of wanted to say, I cannot fix this. I cannot. It doesn't matter how hard I try.
Yeah.
This is how people think. I can't single-handedly change how people think about dating. That's not within my power.
Yeah. That's so interesting though, because it makes so much sense to me that you don't want to put yourself through that. But that's so interesting that people are still encouraging you to get out there, and whatever it may be. And, your success in other areas of life are making people think that you can just magically make success in the dating world or in your personal life. But, I really hear you when you say that you can't fix that because it's not up to you how the general population think about disabled people in terms of dating. And yeah, I can imagine that that's a little bit frustrating to have like your success and your tenacity in like other areas of life be applied to this because yeah, like you said,
Yeah,
this isn't within your control. It's completely other people's perceptions.
yeah. And it's not like I haven't tried.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, if I'm going to tweet this and all the emotional result of that is coming from me, I might as well be completely honest. I might as well be personal and angry and raw because otherwise, what's the point?
The phrase go big or go home comes to mind.
I'm a big believer in go big or go home. My friends like to say that I don't do things by house,
Yeah.
and I think that's probably true. I either don't do it or I do it 100%.
Completely agree with you there. And you definitely strike me as a go big or go home person. So I want to ask you, what would you say is the hardest barrier that you've had to overcome?
Attitude,
Very well said. Yeah.
yeah. Stairs are annoying. We should have less stairs in the world. But they are nothing compared to ableism and
Mm.
yeah, just the assumption that I don't have a job or can't have a job or and if you can't work, that's fine too. But I do work, I can work, and why do you look at me and think that I can't?
Mm.
Or even stupid things like in restaurants not being given a menu because they think I can't read, or
Oh
or,
my God.
or because I'm often or with a carer. How often do people talk to my carer instead of
Oh, yeah.
and they are very good. They just go, Lucy, what do you think?
Mm,
They have no time for this rubbish. I think I've radicalized them even more.
we love that. Yep.
And yeah, but it's just constant. People in the pub saying, "Oh, well done for being out," or
Yeah.
yeah, I've never seen people like you here. What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's like, I would love for you to say, well, you've never seen a blonde person. That's weird.
Someone will go, what else did you just say? But things like that, I think are much more emotionally taxing
Yeah.
than, oh, I can't get in this place. Which is not to say not being able to get in is not extremely annoying. Well, I don't find it upsetting in the way that I find, you know, and yeah, the dating stuff, you know, has always been the big challenge.
Yeah.
I feel like a crack work, I cracked catfish, I cracked the being main fat, having friends and going out. You know, I know what I need to do. It's a lot of work, but I know what I need to do and I do it.
I don't know if you feel this way, but when you were talking about like the difference between not being able to like physically go into a space because of accessibility barriers and then attitudes, I mean, it really resonated with me, but I feel that attitudes are worse because it's an active choice in that moment. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, there's an architect or a builder who decided to put in stairs and not put in a
yeah.
ramp, but it's like in that split moment where you say something crappy to me, you've chosen to do that, and you've chosen to do it in this context. It wasn't 200 years ago.
No, it's always when you're having quite a good time.
Yeah.
You're having quite a good time at the pub with your mates. You had a couple of pints. You know, you're having a laugh. You're not worrying about life. And then someone goes, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" And suddenly your fun, carefree evening is not fun and carefree anymore.
I mean, that's incredibly sad, but I totally get what you mean. It really can catch you off guard, a lot of the time. And, I know I said, oh, say this to that person, but it's so important to realize that it does catch you when you're not expecting it. And to know what to say in those situations is really difficult.
Yeah, I think I had a phase where I thought I should know what to say, but actually now I don't engage at all. I just pretend that I can't hear them.
Fair. I mean, like you said, it's emotionally taxing to deal with that.
I'm what, I'm not, it's not really my job to educate the pub idiot, but that's not my problem. So, my friends are very good at telling people to sort off, if I'm
Yeah.
allowed to say that. Um, or other words to that effect. My friends are very good at, they know my face when I don't want to deal with it. And they're very good at, no, this isn't happening. Um, so I no longer engage
Yeah.
with that. Because otherwise it takes over your whole life. And not prepared to let that happen.
I think that's really well said. I think, it's so important to stress that there is no right or wrong way to deal with situations like that. It should always be a matter of personal choice and like what you also feel safe doing. So
Yeah.
I mean, I love that you have supportive friends, because that is really important. But I suppose we've talked about your 15-year-old self, and that's when you started writing and sort of how pivotal of a moment that was for you. And that you're proud of your past self for doing that. So I'm really interested in what advice would you give your younger self or to young people like you now?
Don't wait until you're 23 or whatever I was to find this community. It's, nowadays they're all on social media, we're all on social media. We're here to be found, find us, reach out to us. I love nothing more than a young disabled person, getting in touch to ask me something. I don't always know, but sometimes they do. Right? And and use use
Mm,
the fact that we're all here and we're all honest and look, to realize that you're not alone, that the stuff that happens to you is not because of you, it's because of everything. It's not in your head. You're not making it up.
yeah.
This shit is real. And it's not right, but at least it's not you. Well, I definitely felt as a teenager, this is me. Am I doing something wrong? Um,
Mm,
no, I was not doing anything wrong. I just lived in a system that oppressed me.
yeah.
And that was a revolution. Yeah, I mean, having disabled friends changed my life. So I reckon, I could give advice about work or I could give advice about care or whatever, but actually fundamentally the the thing I should tell my 15-year-old self, go and find your people
Mm,
because you will feel better when you do.
yeah. I really agree with that. I was in my sort of early mid 20s when I first started even thinking of myself as disabled. And it was a good couple of years after that that I started having disabled friends. And I completely agree with you that it makes you feel that it isn't just you. You're not the only one who's, dealing with carer issues or is feeling discriminated against at the supermarket and, little instances like that. So I remember when I first reached out to you, I can't remember what piece it was, but it might have been when you started your newsletter and I said something like, "Oh, I want Lucy Webster to be my new best friend," because I really felt understood by you, even though we'd never met because of what you were writing. So, I felt like I was able to reach out to you and say that. And I completely encourage other people to, if you see a content creator online who's disabled and that if their work resonates with you, do get in touch because, I don't do it on the scale that you do, but when I do write something, it's so amazing when someone messages you and says, "Oh wow, you really captured what I'm feeling."
Yeah, I think as disabled people, like I said at the start, we're not used to seeing our experiences reflected back to us in writing or TV or whatever. So finding those people who do reflect it back to you is so empowering. And yet all I can say is reach out, reach out. I almost guarantee that someone will reply to you. You know, and it opens up this whole world of friendship and understanding and solidarity and activism that would be so powerful if you were 15.
Yeah, completely agree. And I just want to say a massive thank you to Lucy for joining me on this podcast and being so open about your life experiences and how they've shaped your career. I think so many people will really resonate with your story and will, find a bit of representation in what you're doing. So just thank you so, so much for talking with me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. Hopefully we will actually see each other soon.
I would love that. Absolutely. Great. Well, thank you so much again, Lucy.
Thank you. And have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Wheelchair Activist, where I interviewed the amazing Lucy Webster. Her newsletter subscription link will be in the description of this episode, and I really encourage you to subscribe and support Lucy in whatever way you can. But before you go, I just wanted to remind you that The Wheelchair Activist is committed to making our content as accessible as possible. So we have set up a GoFundMe and a Patreon so that if you're able to, please contribute what you can so that we can continue to invest back into this amazing platform to make sure that our content is accessible. We're working with a podcast producer and doing regular accessibility audits of the website. And if you're not able to contribute, give it a share, and maybe that rich uncle will come through and donate to this amazing platform. Thank you so much, and I will speak to you very soon.